This week so far hasn't been driven by earnings or inflation data. It was driven by FX, commodities, and shifting global asset flows. It tells you risk appetite is changing, and the big question is where capital flows next. In today's breakdown, we'll explain the headlines, what markets are really pricing, and how to think about risk assets from here. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Strategic Markets and our Wednesday session. Today, first thing that we have up on the news is the markets are bouncing hard as volatility is cooling and risk appetite is slowly returning. One of the really good key indicators that is showing us that is the Dow. The Dow has recently made a move to 50,000, and for the first time, it is actually reflecting strong underlying risk appetite. Whether the rest of the market's going to come in and how the capital flows is just going to be a question of the next upcoming days. But something to be a little bit excited about in the future. Next up that we have is a little bit information about gold and silver. So over here, we have recently started to see a little bit of stabilization between gold and silver. If we have a look at a brief review on the charts, we can see over here that we had some retracements over here, but gold is actually making its way back above the 5K mark, which is pretty healthy to see. Silver, on the other hand, still may be lagging. And Steve pointed out to me on the earlier that, on the daily chart, it is still making lower highs and lower lows, possibly citing a little bit more to the downside, but a review on that very soon, and we'll just see how that goes for the future. But what is interesting is there's not a lot of news that's influenced the markets this particular week, but what might change that is some of the key upcoming dates. So on the Feb 11, we have the US jobs and employment numbers that are going to come out. From there onwards, on Feb 13, we have got the US CPI, which has a massive impact on how the market sees future growth. The next up that we have is the US PCE about next week. A lot of these numbers are going to have impacts on how the equities markets are going to be performing over the next couple of weeks. So keep a lookout on that, and we'll keep you posted on how that goes. Other highlights, basically just covering off what we've discussed today. Sharp swings in metals and FX make safe havens feel a little bit unreliable. Equities and crypto aren't really moving uniformly because we've seen that even though the S&P 500 or the Dow is, rebounding and having its strength, Bitcoin is still lagging. And we'll do a brief cover on that. And this blend of strong and weak signals are leaving many people unsure where risk lies. And when we talk about risk, we have our best friend, Bitcoin, which still on the daily and the weekly chart is showing signs of weaknesses. Now, on my little Fibonacci's over here, we can see that it's currently broken down from a previous substructure and is still going down towards possibly testing the 64K range. So we'll see how that particularly holds up throughout the week or so. But yeah, we're definitely seeing that Bitcoin has been volatile throughout all of last week and this week with some deep drawdowns. And it is showing like it is going to be a high beta and correlated to a risk sentiment. Um, how that goes on ahead over the future and where we find support, we're just going to have to look to these levels, and I'll let Stephen cover that off in his segment.
Okay, thanks for that, Yash. So, considering you've just ended off with Bitcoin there, we may as well just lead into the discussion from Bitcoin and we'll go into Ethereum from there as well. Okay, so I'll just enlarge this particular graph here, and you can see in terms of Bitcoin, like we were discussing on the weekend, the time is just going by so quick. You have to actually rethink about where we were sitting from last time in our discussions. But as we were just talking about in terms of that discussion, I'll enlarge this last bit of the section as well on the graph so you can really see what's happening. We've had complete and utter respect of the short-term moving average. And you can really see that. That short-term moving average there is the 8-day EMA. So we've got the complete respect there in terms of Bitcoin, as well as some of the prior resistance lines. So as we were talking about last week, we really needed to go past all of those resistance lines before we can really say that there's any form of bullish tendency in relation to Bitcoin's price movement. We've actually had some decent bounce off some of these support lines, without a doubt, no doubt about that
Mm,
at all. But we were saying even over the weekend, we need to see some of that bounce out through there, and then also to see whether or not we're going to get a test of some of these support lines again. It looks as though it's heading back towards those areas there, and we'll see whether or not we actually do get any form of support from here before it actually bounces back and comes back up towards these areas here. So we could just see a large amount of chop for a while, or it'll plunge right through, and then who knows where it goes from there in terms of testing any other support areas from there. The same kind of thing can actually be seen for Ethereum as well, because it's exactly the same identical pattern. That's
mm,
pretty much about it. And if you take a look at all the altcoins as well, we're looking at the same kind of situations there too. All very, very similar patterns, all very similar kind of situations with moving averages, all kind of same situations, especially even in terms of the Ichimoku patterns. And really, you can even take a look at the lagging indicator there. It's all bouncing off these support and resistance lines as well there too. So it's all in alignment as to exactly what's going on. And we'll flip back to Bitcoin there as well too. You've got the same kind of respect going on even with the lagging indicators. So everything's all aligning in relation to the way that's all going there. So not really much to say apart from the mere fact that we've had a lot of volatility in both of these last week, and now it's just settling down, and now we're just getting that drip, 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 drip situation coming along until it actually decides exactly what it's going to do in the interim.
mm,
But let's wait and see exactly how it resolves itself. Now, heading across to gold and heading across into silver as well, let's see what the situation is with them. Now, as you were alluding to, we were having some form of potential stabilization in relation to gold. Yes, I do agree in relation to that aspect there. Gold does seem to be stabilizing a little bit there. It's testing, like we were saying over the weekend, testing those prior levels on the Ichimoku area in terms of the Tenkan Sen area and also the baseline area. Gold, yes. Silver, not so much. We're still way below any of those baseline areas and the Tenkan Sen areas there. And like you were also saying, Yash, we have got lower highs and lower lows on that daily chart. So still quite a fair amount of weakness there in relation to silver compared to gold. We've been discussing that over the last few videos, and it's really coming through on the charts in relation to that. We go across to the moving averages, looking very ugly for silver, as you can see. Okay.
mm,
Still respecting the 50-day moving average at this point in time, but the short-term moving averages and also the VWAP, which is that green line just coming along there as well, that is not looking great in terms of silver. Now, VWAP can give us an indication, that's volume weighted average price, gives us an indication of who's really in control of the markets. When the share price or the unit price is beneath the VWAP, generally gives an indication that the sellers are in control. When it's above the VWAP, as you can see when over here, the buyers are in control. That's that's the really, really in a nutshell kind of situation there. We flip back to gold, and you can see that it's actually trading above the VWAP at this point in time. So a lot more strength going on in relation to gold. The DXY, basically in relation to the US dollar, well, that overall, in relation to things there, the moving averages have actually turned downwards over this particular week, as you can see. So we actually got a fair amount of weakness in the short term in relation to the US dollar. So there's a lot going on behind the scenes overall in relation to that. We flip across to the Ichimoku. It's not looking all that great there too, like we alluded to over the last couple of videos, testing that baseline, which is now acting as a resistance point. So that's really something major to take into account there. What about the indices though? Well, one thing we've definitely noticed in relation to the indices was Dow Jones being one of the strongest ones that have been going on overall there. Still going along pretty strong, but as you can see now, there could be some potential overextension going on in terms of going away from all of these areas here. Okay, so we like to see things moving along in a nice pattern, usually like a 45-degree pattern. That's a nice kind of way of being able to look at things, not going away too far too fast, But in this particular point in time, this might be going away too far and too fast. Looking at the moving averages, you can really see that that overextension might be there. So something to keep an eye on there. This might be giving us an indication that it may be about time to have a bit of a pullback overall there too. We'll have to wait and see. The Russell, which I've got a little bit further down here in the list here at this point in time, doing okay as well. Had a bit of a negative day overnight, and might actually be heading towards that pullback situation going on right now. We have a look back over at the SPY. Looks as though the same situation as the Russell, doing okay there. But our good old friend the Qs, in terms of tech, really still struggling. Okay,
Mm.
not even anywhere near a lot of those um, moving averages overall, and those moving averages are still pointing down. You can also see the VWAP hiding in there as well in terms of the green area there too. Okay, that green line. Sellers are still in control of that there, and that can also be reflecting when we think about it in terms of Bitcoin and Ethereum as well being highly related to tech. So
Mm.
a lot of things going on here in terms of all of these aspects overall. What does it mean in terms of all of our different traders and different type of perspectives and different ideas behind everything there? Okay, so for long-term investors, basically, obviously, it's a matter of really taking a look at your plan overall, no doubt about that at all. But in the context of what we've just been discussing, having a look in relation to which particular sectors you would like to be involved in. Now, we just basically just took a look in terms of those sectors, and you could see that the Dow was pretty much outperforming a lot of the other sectors overall, but could be taking a bit of a drawback as well there. But you also saw that the Qs were really lagging in the grand scheme of things. So if you're heavily invested in tech, a suggestion may be that you may actually be wishing to actually lighten up your exposure in relation to tech. So that could be one aspect there. What you might like to be doing, as a suggestion there as well, would be having a look to see whether any of those support levels or those moving averages may be broken in terms of certain support levels. And if they do, that could be an indication for you to actually take some action there in accordance with your plan. In terms of conservative and aggressive investors, well, then obviously it's a matter of basically taking a look in relation to your positions there as well, seeing whether or not there may actually be some of those areas where you may wish to actually be getting in at, in terms of, say, going long or short in accordance with those particular sectors as well there too, making a look, taking a look at those particular support and resistance areas as well, having a look at those moving averages, and then also seeing which particular sectors may be worthwhile to actually take long or short positions in accordingly, depending on your level of aggression or conservatism as well there too. And with that, mate, I'll pass it right back to you.
Thank you, Steve.
Yep.
This week's uneven signals from dollar strength and metals volatility to rebound in stocks show investors are debating where risk really lives next. This isn't financial advice, it's how we think about the markets. Common stocks, crypto, or gold, or tell us what you think leads the next move. Thanks for joining us today.